From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. This is your weekly podcast about consumption and the original podcast about consumption. We are a proud member of the You Run Podcast Network, and we are available at yourunpodcast.com. With me this week, as always, is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. His name is Sean. And Sean, how the hell are you doing this evening?
John, first podcast of the year, and you know what? I'm just sitting here getting my pump on.
We're like 3 sentences in. We're both drinking, and I've already fucked up 2 or 3 times. So we're off to a good start. So
Pumping.
What have you been up to this week? You watch anything interesting to wrap up the middle of December?
I've been out back pumping somebody. No, nothing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you film that?
Yes,
So,
of course.
You got OnlyFans going over there?
No, I'm not going to tell you what the URL is.
Podmonster at onlyfans.com that I don't even know about.
Pumper at Pumper on OnlyFans.
Do they do ads? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's at. That's how the. Not that I speak from experience, but that's how the usernames are. They're at names, just like all the other social stuff. Anyhow, yeah, I really haven't gotten a lot of chance to watch much of anything. Getting over Christmas, getting over all that stuff, getting over watching the stuff for the Christmas thing. I really have just been laying back, laying low, watched some of my old comforts. We talked, I watched some Jeopardy, threw some remotes into the kitchen, watched Grand Design, because I love Grand Design. I like to let the episodes stack up, and then I watched like 4 of them in a row. I love seeing how big projects like building a house come together, so that's cool. And of course, I love the schadenfreude of a big project falling apart or not coming together at the last minute, or they take 5 years to build a house, and I think that's pretty intense. But yeah, I really haven't done much of anything, watched much of anything besides some of the old favorites. Oh, I've been really into making cold brew concentrate. I think I talked a few episodes back about that Black Friday thing that I had gotten that took a shit. I didn't go anywhere, but I actually bought it online called the Coffee Sock, and it's a fabric coffee filter that you can put and do cold brew, or you can do hot coffee, pour over coffee. They have different coffee socks, but did some cold brew concentrate, and it's not quite as strong as I like, but gets the job done. Helps you take a shit.
Do you prefer cold brew, or do you? I know I'm a huge hot coffee fan. Like, you've seen, anytime that you get me out of the house before noon, I usually have like a giant Yeti full of coffee with me. But are you a hot coffee guy or just a cold coffee guy?
I do like hot coffee a lot. I make the drip coffee, I guess, not pour over. Drip coffee, like in a regular traditional coffee pot, not a percolator or anything. That's like what I drink probably 80% of the time when I drink coffee in the morning. But I like cold brew on the occasion. That's the only thing I ever put anything in. Like, I drink my hot coffee black, but I'll drink cold brew with, like, almond milk or unsweetened whatever. And
sure.
Yeah, like I said, it's a good laxative. It helps you get things moving in the morning, and God knows I need that. All this stress and anger binds me up. TMI.
No, that's fine. We're about consumption, and with consumption comes expulsion.
Yes,
so
evacuation.
You gotta get there at some point. Yeah, I'm with you on that, though. Like, I'm very much so a black coffee guy and a hot coffee guy, and I'll drink it pretty much right up until it's time to switch over to our good friend alcohol or whatever. But I do agree with you that I like cold coffee, and I want cold coffee to be about as strong as you could possibly make it. But it is kind of weird because won't go as far to say that it requires that little bit of sweetener, usually a cream or whatever in it, almond milk, or we do oat milk in our house, whatever the case is. But it is dramatically better with that in it, which is kind of weird because I don't feel that if you put anything in a hot coffee, it kind of even like booze. Like, I'm a bourbon fanatic, and I know bourbon and coffee supposedly goes together, pigs and shit, but I don't know. You put anything in my coffee other than coffee, and I tend to get a little annoyed with it.
Let me ask you something. You brought it up. You brought up bourbon. I was at Total Wine the other day. We were picking up stuff, and I was looking, and you get lost in the bourbon aisle. I'm not a bourbon guy. I'm not a liquor guy. I like beer. That's pretty much my drink of choice, my poison, so to speak. But, like, just real briefly, the elevator pitch, what's like a good starter bourbon, if that's something you wanted to get into, or maybe even a whiskey?
So I'm not trying to counter your question with a question, but to answer the best way I can, what price range are you looking for?
If you don't know if you want to get into something, you don't want to dive in.
How are you defining cheap?
Like under $25?
Under $25, I would say Maker's Mark, it's probably closer to about $26, but right in that ballpark.
Yeah, I think it was 30 at the store I saw it at.
It's probably a bigger bottle then, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a real good like entry level bourbon. It's got a lot of good flavors. It's really palatable. It's got a lot of cherry notes to it, so it mixes well with Coke, or if you want to do an old fashioned or whatever with it. It's not overly proofy, so when you start with whiskey or bourbon or anything like that, your palate has to adapt to alcohol, and it's not. I know you drink beer and you're drinking some kind of stout right now, which I'm assuming is a higher ABV. I don't know what it is.
An Expedition Stout from 1990 something. I don't know.
One of my favorites, but even that, which I think that's around 12%, something like that. So
10, it says 10.5, but who knows?
Yeah. So when you get into Maker's Mark, for using my example I just gave you, it is 92 proof, I believe. So right around 43-ish percent ABV. It's just a lot more heat. And until you're used to it, like it takes a little bit to kind of develop that. And truthfully, you're not going to pick everything out of it, like from bourbon, until you develop your palate to get acclimated to that. So there's all these like great whiskeys out there, and I like all the high proof stuff and all the crazy shit, all that stuff, but it doesn't make sense to just jump in head first with that, because you're not going to get the full experience and get everything out of it. You have to kind of teach your palate to be able to not just get burned the fuck out. If you really need to stay under $20, I like Evan Williams Black Label is a pretty good entry level, or the White Label. They're bottled and bond and they're regular. It's super cheap. It's kind of peanutty. It's a good like starter, like cheap bourbon, but I think you'll pretty quickly realize that it's a better mixer than it is like a straight drink.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find it, especially at the right price. Like Buffalo Trace is one of my all-around favorites, and I think it's an awesome starter whiskey. The problem is bourbon nerds also love it, so it gets gouged on. So it's a like $26-ish bottle, and I've seen it as high as like 60 because people will pay it because they're fucking dumb. Outside of bourbon, though, I'm not a big fan anymore. Like Jameson, the tried and true green bottle white label Jameson was like how I started on whiskey. I have a hard time drinking that now. One, because I've just moved past it, but they do one that's out of stout barrels. I think it's like a black label with white letters on it. It says Jameson Stout Barrel on it. That's a pretty good, like cheaper bottle. I don't remember what the price is on it, but that's a good whiskey to start with. It's an Irish whiskey, so it's not bourbon. You're getting a different flavor profile altogether, but it's got a nice rich creaminess like you would get from a stout while still having the body of a whiskey. Scotch, I don't have a cheap option for you. The truth is with Scotch, any Scotch that I've liked, and there's not a whole lot of them, Scotch is very much so like it's the same spirit in that it's whiskey, but it's like comparing baseball to like field hockey. Like they're both sports, but they're not the same thing at all.
What a way to start out dry January. Discussion about liquor.
That's what we're doing. But any Scotch that I've had that I've actually liked, it's been, I think the minimum it's been like $50 and north of that. Like the truth is it's just not a cheap liquor to get into. I'm sure that, if I don't even know if we have whiskey people that listen to this, but if a whiskey guy's listening to this, there's probably some guy out there like, hey, blah, blah, blah is a fantastic Scotch and it's only $49.99 or whatever. Yeah. Fuck off.
Well, tell us on Twitter or on Blue Sky or on one of those social things. Let us know what you think.
Absolutely.
Start the year off right.
Yeah. Unlike us who are both drinking on a Friday night because fuck it. Anything else you've been watching?
No, that's it. Been boring.
Yeah, I don't know if I've been boring or interesting this week. I've spent a lot of time on YouTube, so that can go either way. But here's some of the rabbit holes that I've fallen into. So I'm going to start with the best thing that I found this week because we're friends with these people. BP just launched his new Series A he's doing that's called Welcome to the Creep Zone. It's basically like a video version of his podcast, which he's been on our show a couple times. Let's Talk Horror is the show. We both love it. He's great. He did his first episode with our good friend Jordana from Pretty Killer Podcast, and they talk about the movies Creep and Creep 2. So that's about an hour and 15-ish minutes long and worth your time. Two great people talking about two good horror movies, so check that out. The first rabbit hole I fell into, though, you're either going to love this or you're going to hate this. It was the 2022 Stapler Cup Forklift Talent Competition.
So do they do like forklift skill drills and lifting up?
Yes. They set up
cups of
obstacle
coffee
courses.
and shit on their forks or something.
I didn't see anything that small, but they like set up like obstacle courses and shit with pallets all over this fucking warehouse where they gotta like weave and zig and zag and shit through there. They see how much heavy shit they can lift up with one, which I don't really see how that's a skill. I think the forklift's doing all the work in that case, but whatever. They do shit where they'll stack 30 pallets up and try to sit them on top of like a car or some shit. It's admittedly, the more I'm talking about it, the dumber I feel for having watched about an hour of this shit. But I was pretty entertained with it at the time. I might have had some assistance of being entertained, but I've killed an hour in worse ways, I think.
Somebody please think of the forklifts.
Have you ever had to drive a forklift for a job?
I did, yeah. I had a job that I drove a forklift for a little bit, not very long. I drove one of those platforms that lift with the four wheels. Ours was called a Tiger. I don't know if that's the brand or whatever, but drove those for one of those for like a whole summer, pretty much.
Yeah, I did the same type of I don't know what the brand was, but the same type of forklift that these guys were using. I can say pretty confidently that my skill level would not be up to the Stapler Cup at this point. I haven't driven a forklift in probably 20 years at this point. So I don't know if it's like riding a bike, if you can just pick it right back up again. I was pretty good with the electric pallet jack, though, when we had one of those. So,
those are fun.
Yeah, make life easier. The other rabbit hole that I kind of fell into, and I think I've talked about this channel before, but it's a guy his channel is called How to Drink, and he just makes different cocktails and shit like that. And it's, when we're recording this, it's still December, so he's going through a bunch of Christmas themed shit. So he's, how when you go to Total Wine or any liquor store, every spirit company in the world makes their own weird fucking Christmas version of X spirit. So like, I don't know, gingerbread cream vodka or whatever.
Saw a lot of those.
Yeah, he basically bought like 50 of those and tried them all in one 30-minute episode. And by the end of it, he's like just fucking shit hammered and bitching, and that was pretty entertaining. He did a whole episode. So his channel used to be a lot of taking cocktails or drinks that you would see in like a movie or a TV show and recreating them as best he could or improving them. So like he did a whole episode on like the White Russian, which was obviously the Big Lebowski, or what's that game, Cyberpunk 20 whatever. I guess there's a bunch of drinks in that, and he recreate a bunch of those and shit like that, which is moderately interesting, I guess, or at least if you're a drunk, it's moderately interesting. In this one, he decided to make a Home Alone inspired cocktail, so he made one that was a pizza cocktail, which sounded horrible, but he seemed to make it sound somewhat palatable, but I don't think I want to try it. And the other one was an ice cream cocktail, which I was like, I feel like that's probably been done about 1 billion times. Like, it's not that hard to put a shit ton of sugar. And I like the flavor of vanilla, but people use vanilla as a negative for a reason. Like, it's very easy to kind of just pass it along in anything. And that's kind of what I felt like he did. But yeah, I watched a bunch of those, so that was good. The only other thing I started was they have a series on Netflix, which is How to Be a Horrible Thing. I started the How to Be a Mob Boss series, which is 6 episodes. They also have a How to Be a Cult Leader one, which I haven't got to yet. And at first I thought they were actually giving you like instructions on how to become a criminal. And it turns out it's really just like 6 episodes about 6 different guys that happen to be in organized crime. And they're like, oh, if you want to be a mob boss, you got to do blah, 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 like Al Capone. And then you find out within like 5 minutes, like, oh, this episode is really just about Al Capone and so on.
Right.
So still moderately interesting, but I was hoping for more like, this is how you hide a body with a wood chipper. Something.
Step-by-step instructions on how to commit heinous crimes.
Yeah, well, you want to be a mob boss, like, don't false advertise. Like, give me the goods, right? So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Random rabbit holes and belligerent alcoholism. Good way to start 2024, right?
Still never be used to saying that year until about September.
I still think it's 2020, so I don't...
A little bit of a gap there.
I'm sure most of the people that listen to this work, but whenever I get asked to fill in a date, I'm like 20, I don't know what year, whatever fucking year this is. And eventually memory jogs. I'm like, oh yeah, 2023. Okay. You got anything else before we take a break?
Nope.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we will come right back and start our New Year's resolution month.
Hey fam, Newman here from Movies for Days, your non-pretentious easy access movie chat podcast and weekly deep dive into any film from any genre, from any decade with anybody's guess as to how we chose that movie that week. Proud member of the You Run Podcast Network. Check us out where all great podcasts can be heard, and on Twitter at Movies Days. Movies is spelled regular, Days is spelled with a Z.
So we are back, and this week we are starting our month-long exercise routine, regimen, marathon. We're talking about aerobic journey. Sure. We're talking about aerobics-based horror movies all month for the month of January. We've been kind of teasing this for a while, and I've been looking forward to it. I'm assuming you've been at least somewhat okay with this. You haven't bitched about it, so that's a good thing.
This micro subgenre is one of my, it's like the most fun thing to just look at.
It is. It's a very bizarre, like, it's one of those blink and you'll miss it subgenres. And I got to say, like, every single time that one of these nuggets emerge from the ether, I'm thoroughly thrilled about it. So, and we're starting the new year off, right? We're talking about the movie, depends who you ask, Aerobicide or Killer Workout. I'm going to go with Aerobicide because I just think that's a better title than Killer Workout. So we're going to call it, I think we're going to go ahead and call it that for the most part. But Aerobicide came out in 1987. And as always, we start with a third-party review. This third-party review is from some anonymous fucker. He gives it 2.5 stars out of 5. And he says, the B-roll is just women jumping up and down in sexy workout gear. Lots of cheese, bizarre kills, and enough to keep the slasher title. A few twists, I guess, and turns to pique your attention. That's it. Sean, what is Aerobicide about?
So if we jump over to IMDb, we got the plot, we got the storyline. We're going to start with the plot, and it says 2 years ago, a young woman named Valerie was burned after entering a tanning salon. Now her twin sister Rhonda runs a local gym where, all of a sudden, people are being murdered. And if we go down to the storyline, care of Nick Reganis, he says, after
You should have been trailer voice guy just for that.
If we go to the storyline again, Nick Reganis says, after the horrible tanning bed incident that ruined her reputation, fitness fanatic Rhonda Johnson, the co-owner of Rhonda's Workout Fitness Club in Los Angeles, tries to find her feet. Having devoted herself to shaping perfect bodies, Rhonda gets back to square one when a stealthy serial killer on the loose targets the health spa's unsuspecting customers. And as Rhonda's members die left and right, questions arise. Who's behind the outburst of lycra violence? Can hard-boiled Detective Morgan stop the psychopath before more innocents die?
So while you were reading that, I just took a second to Google Rhonda's workout t-shirt, and you can buy these on several places for about $17. I think I might have to make a purchase before the night's over. Let's see how this whiskey treats me by the end of the night.
You know, I was watching this movie, and there's a lot of the Rhonda's workout t-shirts featured in the movie, and I thought to myself, I didn't think to look to see if one was for sale online somewhere, because, you know, but I thought to myself, I wonder if any of these cast members, because a lot of these cast members they weren't in much more than this movie, maybe a few other ones. If any of those original t-shirts actually got, if they, number one, if they are still in existence, and number two, how many of them got donated to like Goodwill or Salvation Army or some,
sure,
resale shop of some sort.
This movie came out in 87, as we mentioned, and judging by what I'm assuming the budget is, which is pretty nil, I got to think those shirts disintegrated by the end of the movie, if not, shortly after.
By the end of filming.
I didn't know this until this week, and I've seen this movie a handful of times before this. Did you realize this is the same dude who directed Deadly Prey?
I absolutely did, and a lot of the cast members are the same from Deadly Prey. We talked about Deadly Prey last year. I think it was the summer, if I remember correctly.
Was that a crummy movie, March movie, or was that?
It could have been. It could have been.
Either way, if you haven't seen Deadly Prey and you want to see an insane movie with a high body count, go watch Deadly Prey and then come back and watch Aerobicide. But
yeah, so this movie's
fucking movie.
Yes, this movie is directed by David A. Pryor, I believe, and this stars Ted Pryor, his brother, David Campbell, who plays the detective, Fritz Matthews is one of the kind of meathead bad guys. They were all in Deadly Prey, and Deadly Prey immediately followed this movie in David Pryor's filmography. So that was the movie that was made after this one, and I would say it's probably about the same budget, like very low budget. And David Pryor went on to film a bunch of stuff. I didn't realize he had made, and maybe we did talk about this on that podcast on the Deadly Prey one, but he went to make a sequel to Deadly Prey called Deadlier Prey.
Deadliest? I thought it was Deadliest.
Yeah, you're right. Deadliest.
Yeah. Now that we've had David Pryor or David A. Pryor corner, sorry, I don't want to misrepresent him.
Watch out.
Where do we start with this movie? Because, I mean, I think we should start where this movie starts. This movie is all the boobs. Like, we talked about a movie recently, I think it was the Children, that we said was awfully horny for a movie that had a lot of kids in it. And you thought that movie was horny. This movie is like the horniest fucking movie that we've watched so far this month, which I think it's only going to go downhill from here. But our third-party review is fairly accurate that the amount of aerobics-based gym scenes where it's just women bouncing around and gyrating, it's like every 5 minutes, they were like, okay, cut, put in some more gyration, kill someone, gyration. It's like they use it, instead of using a fade to black or a star wipe or any other type of transition from one scene to another, they just cut to some people doing aerobics in like what was, by 1980s standards, skimpy workout gear. Oh,
I mean, this has I'm here for it. I mean, this has
I agree.
all the, braless jumping and gyrations and everything else going around. Super sexualized aerobics, gym setting. There are characters that are totally, by today's standards, they're being sued for sexual harassment. I mean, just the looks that some of these people give each other, and the women the women give it as good as they get. It's not just the men that are ogling women. There are women that are ogling the men. It goes both ways. So it's very sexually charged, the whole movie.
There's like a 3-minute scene that is just like sweatpants sweater hog, like just it's not full frame of the movie, but the bottom like third of the screen is just like sweatpants laden dick the whole shot. Which, good for him.
Yeah, short shorts, super short shorts on the guys. Ted Pryor in particular wears a really short pair of shorts. Like, I don't know how his dickhead isn't hanging out of the bottom of them, but they're like real short. These are like running short, jumping around and having fun.
So in other words, get out of the way, yoga pants. This is the way that you should be dressing if you want to attract a shitty human being to be your beau.
It won't be me, but it'll be somebody.
We're already spoken for, so we can't really do that.
Very true.
So we mentioned this movie starts, aside from all the horny, with a woman in a tanning bed who essentially gets like microwaved to what you think is death, but you learn not that long after is just to disfigurement, I guess would be what it would be.
Well, I think so. The initial scene is a woman who's getting ready at home at her apartment. She gets a voice. I was going to say voicemail. It wasn't even voicemail. Someone leaves a message on her answering machine saying, hey, you booked this cover for Cosmopolitan. It's going to be I think it's in France or Italy or somewhere. I told him you were tan. So if you're not tan, go get one. So she heads down to the tanning salon, gets in the tanning bed that closes automatically over her, and it traps her in this thing. And it's almost like
the tanning bed that looks suspiciously like a coffin.
Like a coffin. Yeah, for sure. And it traps her in this thing where she cooks. And the whole scene, this whole scene that plays out, they never show, well, they don't never, but they try as hard as possible to not show her face. So you're not quite sure who this person is, how the whole thing ties into the story, how it goes together.
See her boobs, but not her face.
Yes. Yeah. You see her cans, but not her face. And just to mention, we're going to go probably into super spoiler territory. This movie, in case you're interested in watching it, is streaming on Tubi with ads, Redbox, FilmRise, Freevee, Cult Picks, which I guess is a free streaming thing. So if you're really interested in watching this movie, just to let you know, it is available for free on those services. It is ad supported, but we're probably going to jump into some mild spoilers going forward
for this fucking 35-year-old movie.
Right.
Like we said, she basically microwaves herself in this tanning bed coffin. Then we go right to the gym where Rhonda's workout is taking place. We get it feels like 10 minutes of just straight aerobics. It's probably not that, but it feels like that. And then we get our first kill shortly after that. We get a shower scene that goes on for an extremely long time as well. Like, I'm pretty sure this chick didn't spend half the time just like soaping up her face while her boobs are in frame. She probably would have lived through the whole movie without a problem. So this is the first time where we see, I'm going to go ahead and call it arguably the worst murder weapon in the history of slasher films.
Yes.
This is like the safety pin from Baby Huey from the old cartoons that gets used to, like, I don't even know if stabbing's the right word, but to like violently poke this woman several times. For all the things I enjoy about this movie, gigantic safety pin doesn't seem like an effective murder weapon at all.
Yeah, a lot of the movie starts off with this huge safety pin. They're being practically impaled on it. It's so big. And I was really, later on in the movie, the killer, which is very much like, this movie bills itself as a horror kind of slasher thing, but it's also a bit of a mystery because you don't really know who's responsible for all these deaths. The first 12 to 15 minutes, 3 or 4 people die. The murder weapon is this big, huge safety pin. It eventually turns into a knife and then gym equipment, which arguably should have been throughout the entire movie.
But then it goes back to being a safety pin by the end of it.
And you're in the dark as to who is actually committing these crimes for most of the movie. I think the thing that I thought was really funny was, this is a gym. You pay for your membership. People are dying in this place. They're being murdered in the location. The police come, they check it out. There's no like chalk outline. There's no investigation. There's no closing the scene to investigate, to try and figure out what's going on. It's just, oh, that happened this afternoon. Well, we got to get this cleaned up because tomorrow we got another class coming in to do more aerobics or more people to work on the Smith machine or whatever. And people die.
My favorite part about when someone dies in this gym, this operating gym that you pay your membership for and all that, the two like body bag dudes that come in throughout the movie, and I laugh more and more at these two guys every time I watch this film. They're so nonchalant. The way they pick up this body, like they're like, a human body is what? We'll say 5 to 6 feet tall, depending on the person, give or take. These guys stand maybe like 2 feet apart from each other. So when I say they pick it up, I mean, they're doing like the bare minimum amount of lifting to this. Like you're just kind of extending legs and arms and kind of shuffling out like goobers. And the way they look, they're just like, again, they're nonchalant and non-committal as fuck. And they even get to a point about halfway through the movie, they're like, oh, well, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. I was going to say, that was
shuffle out.
That's my favorite line from them is, I'll see you tomorrow, I guess.
Right.
They're constantly in there with their white.
I interrupted you.
That's okay. They're constantly in there with their white garbage bag. But yeah, I don't even remember where I was going.
You were talking about no chalk outline, just right back to aerobics, I'm assuming is where you were going.
Yeah, it's just the way that these people find out that people actually died in this place is just hearsay. Oh, hey, did you hear this person? I heard they got stuffed in a locker. They were chopped to bits, it's funny because that's how it would really happen. I mean, obviously the place would be shut down if it was real, but the first victim, the woman in the shower that's stabbed with the pincushion, I guess. She's a human pincushion. She's stuffed into a locker. But the urban legend is that she was cut into pieces and stuffed into this locker, and it's you wouldn't think that a huge safety pin like this would do so much damage, but it's the mutilator. It just rips people up.
It's funny you say that. You're right. I didn't even think of this. It's like I haven't gone to the gym in several years because I kind of hate people and I don't want to go to the gym. But if Sean and I go to the gym and he's like, "Hey John, did you hear that, Bob over there, he got cut into 15 pieces and stuffed into a locker right over there." You know what the first thing I'm doing?
Looking at the locker?
I'm canceling my fucking gym membership and going, well, okay, that's the second thing I'm doing. Or that's the first thing I'm doing. Second thing I'm doing is I'm canceling my gym membership and going, let's go to a less stabby gym, maybe.
There are a lot of gyms in this area.
This is not how I want to lose weight.
I think I could go to a different one. It'd be okay. We get the cop comes in, Detective, whatever his name is, Detective Bad Hair. I don't remember what his actually. I got to look it up. Lieutenant Morgan, Detective Lieutenant Morgan, which I didn't realize detectives could be lieutenants, but I guess that makes sense. Who played?
That's a big fucking name.
It is. He played the bad guy in Deadly Prey. He was like the ultimate bad guy in Deadly Prey. He comes in and he just has this, I don't know, this like dead eye stare to everyone he's talking to in the movie. I think this movie's only, I believe, about an hour and 26 minutes long. I would say is it what, like 128?
125.
No, I overshot twice. I would say for the first 75% of the movie, he doesn't blink in any of the scenes that he's in. He just like has this killer stare, just staring at every suspect. And then Ted Pryor shows up, Chuck Dawson, sent from headquarters, which is the second owner.
He's the mullet guy that gets into fights all the time.
Yeah, the blonde guy. He gets into, I'm glad you brought that up. He gets into these fights and he's like this I don't know. He's like this assassin, and the fights are so funny. They just stand in front of each other and throw punches.
There's no way I couldn't bring up these fights the way that they have.
They're the highlight of the movie.
Well, they're one of.
Yes, a highlight.
Specifically, I'm going to call it the parking lot fight. Maybe it's an alley fight.
The parking lot,
in front of
the parking lot brawl.
Brawl implies multiple people. Whatever. It's outside on. Is it David Campbell's car, the Trans Am or whatever?
It's a Mustang. Yeah, it's like a Mustang.
Whatever it is. Yeah. The amount of, like you said, these guys literally just stand and like exchange punches for,
minutes
in movie time, like several minutes, with the occasional roundhouse jump kick, which never lands but does manage to throw one person on top of the car or whatever. The only time that's topped is when Chuck or Ted, Blondie, when he goes after him the second time in the gym. I think he like gets a little rough with one of the girls, and he comes out of fucking nowhere and like jump kicks this dude like in the chest and just starts beating the shit out of him. And doesn't he kill him or something like that?
Oh, I don't think
he fucks him up.
If he's fighting with Jimmy, aka Fritz Matthews is the actor, and I think he's a stuntman, but he was another bad guy in Deadly Prey. So if you got to see Deadly Prey, you'll recognize all these guys, or maybe you'll see Deadly Prey after you see this. But they just keep going back and forth. Kind of look
like generic 80s dirtbags. Like,
yeah.
If you've seen any action movie from this era,
B-tier action movie, you've seen any of these guys, but different actors. Any of the
supporting casts are, but anyway,
same role.
Yeah, these fight scenes, like, aside from all the murder and all the boobs in this movie, I mean, as if that wasn't enough to sell you on this, these ridiculous, over-the-top, shitty fight scenes are just fucking chef's kiss of like ridiculous over the top shitty fight scenes.
Yeah, these are what the 80s were made of, are fights like these.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Just standing toe to toe with somebody, trading blows. There's one of the fights in the alley, and I think there's a scene where Ted Pryor, aka Chuck Dawson, is taking out the trash or something, and Jimmy comes and drives his Mustang. He's waiting for him behind the building, and he drives towards him, and Chuck pulls out his gun and shoots it at him. Or I think he tries to, and he's going like 40 in this alley, and he hits him with the car, and he just jumps on the windshield, and he's like, ugh. And then they're trading blows like they're doing flurries on each other's stomachs for a long time. A lot of this, the hour and 20 whatever minutes, I would say probably 10 minutes of it are fights that just go nowhere. There's no result. No one, except for the pool fight scene. There's a fight scene around an outside pool. That's the only one when anybody's even injured.
Well, I like how all these fight scenes end with like, and don't do it again or something like that. And they just walk away with this like shithead stare, like, I fought you. And then, they kind of take their short shorts and they're like,
mullets,
banana hammocks and mullets and get into their, Mustangs or Trans Ams and putz away like nothing happened. So. And then they're back at the gym with their safety pins.
A lot of the fights end with, you could almost hear them all saying, hey, Cheesemeister, keep your hands off my girl. Like, just silly, stupid shit is the way that I would categorize a lot of the ways that these fights end.
I would almost categorize this entire movie as silly, stupid shit.
Oh, yeah.
In a good way.
Absolutely. This is what a movie like this is the reason that this show exists, is to expose
100%.
Something like this to everybody listening, because it's worth it.
To go behind the curtain, like I think we both enjoy doing new movies and good movies and talking about that stuff. But I think the real thing that we've really, I don't want to go as far to say we excel at it, but what we really like talking about is just asinine, dumb shittery that happens to have a body count. So, and that's why we've been looking forward to New Year's resolution January, because I can tell you if you're listening to this and you've already heard us say there is a lot of aerobics-based movies coming up, I'd be willing to bet you can guess at least 2 of the 4 episodes that are still to come after this.
Well, I'll give a little hint, and maybe it's not so much of a hint, but there's a scene I thought was interesting. There's a scene where after a lot of people have already died at this gym, Rhonda's workout, which is a weird name for a gym, but after a few people have already died, there are patrons of the gym that come and they spray paint on the glass, like on the front window of the place. And one of them writes Death Spa, and that's the name that they write. So that's probably the one that we're going to talk about next. But they write Death Spa on the front of the window, and 3 two of those three people, there are three people involved, get killed by the killer who must just live on the outside of this place watching the window. Hey, don't vandalize my place. I kill people here. How dare you scare people away?
Fucking terrible. I don't even know where to go at this point. Like, I mean, again, this movie it's just fun. Like, it really is. Like, this movie, I feel like even though we haven't really talked too much about the plot, because really the plot line in this movie is minimal to the point where it's almost trivial. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the plot is just you go to this gym and people die here. I think that as the movie goes on, the killer gets more and more brazen. I think it'd be criminal for us not to mention there's this like trippy dream sequence where someone is suspected of being the killer and he gets beat up. And then he has like this, unconscious dream of killing himself and having one of the people that work there like have sex with him in his dream. And then another version of him comes in and they start choking each other. It's this whole weird thing. The fight scenes are just odd. I think some of the delivery of the lieutenant, one of my favorite lines that he says is, it's not what he says, but it's the way that he says it. And when one of the characters is revealed to be somebody that, we didn't know they were, basically it's like an unmasking or to that along those lines. And they're, horribly disfigured. I guess that might spoil it. But the detective says, you couldn't get a job starring in a freak show. He just like emphasizes the wrong words. And it's hilarious the way, like how wrong the way that he does it is.
I just think for me, and I mean this as a compliment, so take this however you want. This movie and several of this kind of movie is the epitome of, did that just happen? Fuck it, I don't care. This is great. Like, that's how I would describe this movie and this kind of movie, because there is a very minimal plot line. And again, to an extent, this is a little bit of a whodunit type slasher. Like, you don't exactly know who it is until the very end of the movie, and fine, whatever. But so much of this movie plays out as just, I've lobbied for this before, but this is the quintessential, like, just do some drugs, sit back and buckle up and enjoy, because this movie is ridiculous. And the more you overthink it, it's a disservice to this movie. This movie is not meant to be dissected in the sense that you're trying to break it down and be like, oh, what is the message in, Aerobicide?
What are they trying to tell me in this movie?
Yeah, what is the hidden meaning behind killer work? No, just sit down, get some Sour Patch Kids or popcorn or whatever your fucking, thing is. Shut up and just enjoy it, because it is literally like the movie version of candy. In so many ways. For sure.
It's not nourishing at all. It doesn't nourish your brain. It's just there. It's junk food for your brain. I mean, let's recap a little bit. We've got a tanning bed, aka coffin, that burned someone. We've got a police officer that's totally unhinged and lets anybody in on parts of this investigation that people shouldn't know about. We've got these
random mulleted dick strapping cockfights.
We've got these delicious back alley brawls. We've got people picking up each other just because, like, oh, you're hot. Let me almost expose myself while I'm working out. We have people basically gyrating with as skin tight of clothes as you can think of. We've got this hallucination, this fever dream. We've got reveals of crazy people that are disfigured, but you can't tell because they're totally clothed. We got the detective who's just unhinged and saying crazy things to each other. And one of my favorite things that happens right near the end of the movie is there's like this gunfight, and there's all these foot races in open ground, right? Open, no cover, just open fields or open industrial areas running around. They have guns, and of course the great equalizer in a foot race is a gun, and nobody ever fires it when they're just running away. It's the tables turn. Oh, how the tables have turned. The tables turn constantly in this movie.
And all this is held together with the insanely tightly sewn seeds of boobs, butts, and dongs.
And Lycra.
That's it. And Lycra. Yeah, and that's it. So, I don't know. I don't even want to go too much further in describing everything that happens. Like, if we haven't sold you on this movie from the 30-ish minutes that we've been babbling about all this type of insanity.
I don't know if we will.
Right. So I'm going to kind of cork it right here and say, let's just roll right into hot dogs at this point.
Do it.
Because I think we could babble back and forth about different random shit. I'm going to go ahead and just kick us off on this one, because why not? it's a new year, I'll go ahead and just take the option away from you this time.
New year, new leaf.
Yeah. This movie, Aerobicide, Killer Workout, whatever you want to call it. One, it has 2 titles. Whenever you see a movie that has been renamed for whatever fucking reason, that's usually a sign of some sort of quality. Whether it's good or bad is yet to be determined, but it's a sign of something, and it usually means that you should watch it.
It's something.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, this movie is just flat out fucking fun. I've said a billion times on this show and probably other places, I'm a fan of movies that I don't have to think too hard about. And if anything in this movie is a thing, thinking is your enemy. Like, don't even bother. It's simple, it's fun, it's eye candy, it's drug trips, it's exercise, and it's just all the good and all the bad things that if you love 1980s video store cinema, this is a movie for you. Don't even bother going further than like overthinking it. Just put it on Tubi, put it on Freeview, whatever you want to fucking stream it on, just do it. If nothing else, you're going to see a whole bunch of boobs, a whole bunch of like safety pin murders, and you're probably going to get a few laughs at either how much you're having fun or how bad this movie is, depending on your point of view. I really don't have any real negatives to say about this movie because it's almost trite to bring up a negative. Like, what are you going to do? Complain about the production value? This was probably made for like $35.
The price of a gym membership.
Pretty much. I would give this like at least like 6.5 Rhonda's murder safety pins out of 10 bulging sweater hot dogs. It's fun. It's great. There's really no bad negative. Don't go into it expecting some kind of Oscar-worthy movie or performance. It's not that, but if you want that, you're kind of in the wrong place starting a movie called Aerobicide to begin.
I don't know if I know what a sweater hot dog is. I don't know if I want to know what that is, but I will say that I think this movie it lives up to
it's
that.
Sweaty and delicious.
All right, then. This movie lives up to the whole moniker of so bad it's good. I think that this is a really small subgenre of horror. There's not a whole lot of movies that exist in this subgenre, and we're going to talk about them this month. That's
Pretty much all of them.
Yeah, so I think we're going to talk about at least 3 of the ones that we know about. And I think this is a bit more of a mystery than a horror movie. I mean, it does have those slasher elements, but it does have kind of that whodunit thing like John mentioned earlier. I think it's worth your time to explore the subgenre. There's just a lot of fun to be had here. If you took our advice in watching Deadly Prey, I think you know what you're in for. It's very similar, very much along those lines, very over the top. I think like we had said earlier, this is like candy for your brain. This isn't one that you want to think too much about. But I do think that you should check out Aerobicide, aka Killer Workout. I would give it 6 burned up tanning beds out of 11 hot dogs. It's just a fun movie. Like it's not going to keep you up at night and you're going to think about the plot holes or anything, which there are plenty of, but it's just fun. It's just something you could sit and watch and not have to think too much about anything. It's a good escape. It's good escapism cinema. And I use cinema very loosely.
No, cinema is the right word. I mean, what else are you going to call it? So
this movie isn't even in widescreen. I think it's only available in like 4:3 or whatever.
Yeah, it's fine. Who cares? Fuck it.
Everybody knows you have to have the black bars on the top and the bottom for it to be cinema.
Again, we've politic for this before. You want a movie that like screams, you should watch a VHS rip of this if you can find one. This is a good option to be the grimy, shitty VHS rip to really get the full experience of what. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I wish I knew about this movie in the 90s when I would have been a teenager and could have fully appreciated all this gyrating. But alas, there's other things out there.
I mean, it's 2024, and I'm appreciating the gyrating. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm appreciating it in a whole different way now at 40 than I would have at 16 for whatever that's worth. So
you're mature. Your tastes have matured.
Yeah, that's what it is. All right. Question of the week. So this is the first episode of 2024. So we're going to go kind of right up home plate or right down home plate or right up your ass, whatever we want to call it. Our question of the week is pretty simple. Do you have a New Year's resolution for 2024? So let's start over on Instagram because we have only one answer there. This one is from Average Strewski. You can follow him on Instagram at Average Strewski or his YouTube channel, which I believe is also Average Strewski. His resolution is pretty simple. Don't suck this year.
I think that's an evergreen resolution, right? Applies to any year.
It's words.
But it's the hardest one, probably.
Words to live by. It's harder for some of us than others. We're going to switch over to Twix, as our good friend BP calls it, or Twitter or X or whatever the fuck it is. So same question, different answers. Our first response comes from Cliff Carl, who is at Doobie Shadow 420. His response is to continue smoking weed. You know what? It's a priority. That's what we're going with.
This would be a good movie to do and watch with. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense.
It worked for me. Our friends, the Krusty Boys and fellow You Run Podcast network members, they said, I might fuck around and quit smoking, might start a cult, opening a food truck. I'm also looking to bring my listener numbers down, might find a podcast similar to ours and declare a death match. I'm just going to put it out there. I love the moxie of the Krusty Boys. These guys, they don't fuck around, and it's great.
I mean, I think all those things are good. You could do all of them at once. You could have a cult that has a food truck and doesn't smoke.
Depends what you're smoking, I guess.
True.
Dissect that film. They gave a response of, it's always to work out and get myself back into shape. It's been years, and I still can't seem to do it. Watch this movie. You will learn how to get a proper workout.
You could probably do some of the routines from the movie.
Absolutely.
There you go. I like that little pelvic twerk that they do. That's a good one.
That's the gift that I used for this question, because I figured it would draw the attention of people who read it. As mentioned before, our good friend our good friend BP over at Let's Talk Horror said his resolution is to eat more pizza. You would think that would be easy, but y'all don't understand how much pizza I actually eat.
Well, he is part Ninja Turtle, so
that's true.
That explains a lot of that.
It's got to be like a 90% diet of pizza, right? We're going to bump those numbers up to 95. 90 is rookie numbers.
Yeah.
Kevin and Jason at the KJ and a podcast said, I've tried before, but I might finally stop drinking.
That's tough.
We're here for you.
Yeah. These are trying times, my friend.
Yeah. We're two Midwestern bearded dudes in Michigan. Drinking is kind of something that we do, but we're
a bit of a pastime. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And then Dave over at Leprechaun 1981 said, well, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. Well, that's the goal anyway. Again, watch this movie. Watch every other movie we talk about this month. We're going to give you lots of inspiration for the fitness. Sean, do you have any resolutions for 2024?
I don't believe in that shit. I'm already perfect.
I'm the same way. I'm
already perfect. What do I need to improve?
I'm a far fucking cry from perfect, but I don't believe in resolutions. I don't think you need a new year to start doing something to make yourself a little bit better.
I think I get the most annoyed about when I've been a regular gym goer and January comes along and then it's super packed at the gym for about few weeks, maybe until like the middle of February. Yeah. And you can't, not that I've
usually around Super Bowl, it kind of tapers off.
Yeah. Not that I've belonged to a gym for a while. It's been quite a while, but I remember when I would go before work and everything, it'd be the worst time to go is when right around January and everybody shows up, or when you want to. But the good thing is if you want to organize your life and buy bins and all that shit, this is the time to do it. All that stuff's on sale.
Well, that's a good thing. I probably should do that, but I'm not going to call it a resolution because my wife might try to hold me to it.
Might turn into a lifestyle choice.
Yeah, we're not doing that. Yeah, I don't have any real resolutions either. I don't usually like doing that. If I'm going to change something, I'd rather just do it and not be like, I fucking propose I'm going to do this. Yeah, no. I'm going to watch bad movies and continue to talk about them on this wonderful podcast or horrible podcast or whatever the fuck we are. So,
John.
Anyway, it's that guy.
Do you resolve to wipe your ass more this year?
More? No. I plan to do it as much as necessary to get the job done.
Less, if anything.
Yeah, less. I'm going to buy one of those bidets. That seems like it could be fun.
Crusty asses are nice. Oh, do I still have the voice on? No, okay.
No, you don't. We got to give that guy a name if you're going to start breaking them out randomly.
John. His name is Hello, John. How are you today? Did you wipe your ass? He's the last wiping guy. He wants to know if you wiped your ass. Is it wiped? Did you wipe it clean? Did you look on your face? I can tell you.
That's entirely too long to be a name. No, I'm not disturbed. That's just too long to be a name.
Hello, John. Have you wiped your ass? Hello, John. Have you wiped your ass, guy? He wants to know if you've wiped your ass today, John.
I want to say the next question of the week is going to be, what do we name that guy? But our next recording will be before this even comes up, so I can't do that.
We can pretend he doesn't exist until he gets a name. We'll include him because he was on the last episode and he asked when's the last time you wiped your ass? He was at the end of the episode after all the music and everything.
All right. Well, this is falling apart quickly, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. So I'm going to go wipe my ass, apparently. And we're going to ask you to follow us at all the social networks. We are at Dewey Pod Monster. If you search us, you will find us. Just search Dewey Pod Monster. We're available. You can also check us out at crap.town and, of course, on the You Run Podcast website at yourunpodcast.com. Sean, what do you got going on? What do you want to tell us to do? I'm sure I forgot something because I was busy being concerned about wiping my ass.
Having a crusty ass?
I am a honorary crusty boy for this week.
I was just going to say, if you want your answer to the question of the week answered on this podcast, read on this podcast, you can find us on all the social media at
Yes, this is a podcast.
Yes, this is a podcast. If you have any feedback or any questions, or you're just outraged about what John said was a good cheap whiskey or bourbon or scotch to start with, reach out to us on social media. You can also find me and all my Michigan craft beer adventures at Draft Therapy. You can also find me at youtube.drafttherapy.com and take you directly to my YouTube channel, where you can find a lot of old reviews about old beers and all that kind of stuff. And if you're lucky, you can see a video of
John wiping his ass.
You filmed that?
Yes, I put a camera in the ladies'
Oh,
toilet.
shit.
And the men's toilet, too.
Well, I only use the ladies' toilet. It's much more soft.
It's probably got the
They
good...
got that
It doesn't have the
3-ply?
Scott toilet paper. It's got the good stuff.
No, they got that 3-ply shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
So that's all we got. Have fun. Wipe your ass. Use 3-ply. Use 2-ply. Whatever you got to do. We will talk to you next week and continue our New Year's resolution marathon. Cheers.
Perfect body you're trying to find. Aerobicide. When it starts with your mind and gets to your body, trying to get everything in place. And we're all in a line, moving to the music while the sweat is dripping from your face. Well, I ask myself why do I do it as my body starts to complain? So now here I am, and I put myself through it, but there seems to be more than just pain. Aerobicide. Oh, working out until you die. Aerobicide. Ooh, it's the perfect body you're trying to find. Aerobicide. Aerobicide. Well, it gets to the point